The sun was slowly sinking behind the hills, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink. I was sitting by the window, staring out at the glowing horizon, feeling a little lonely. It had been a long day, and I had been waiting for what felt like forever. My father had gone on a trip, and I missed him so much. I couldn't wait to see him again, but it felt like the time was moving slowly. I heard my mother's soft footsteps behind me. She always knew when I was feeling down. She gently sat beside me and placed her hand on my shoulder. "Are you okay, my dear?" she asked, her voice as calm as the evening breeze. I sighed and nodded. "I miss Baba so much, Mama. I keep looking out the window, hoping to see him walking back through the door, but he's not here yet." My mother smiled kindly and said, "I understand, my dear. I miss him too, but you know this is a perfect time to learn something important. Do you know what that is?" I shook my head, curious about what she was going to say. "It's the gift of patience," she explained softly. "Patience is a beautiful thing. It means waiting calmly and trusting that everything will happen at the right time." I looked up at her, unsure. "But Mama, it's so hard. I want Baba to come home, now. Why do I have to wait?" My mother chuckled gently, brushing a strand of hair from my face. "It's hard, I know, but sometimes Allah teaches us to be patient because He has a special plan for us. Waiting can help us grow stronger and more peaceful inside. And when we are patient, we show Allah that we trust in His timing, even when we don't understand why things take time." I thought about her words for a moment. I really wanted to see Baba, but I didn't want to feel upset or anxious while I waited, so I asked her, "How can I be patient, Mama?" My mother nodded and began to tell me a story. "Let me tell you about the Prophet Ayub, a man who was known for his incredible patience. Prophet Ayub had everything a person could want: a loving family, good health, and plenty of wealth. But then Allah tested him with hardships. He lost his health, his wealth, and even his children. People around him said, 'Why don't you just ask Allah to take away your suffering?' But Prophet Ayub didn't complain. He kept trusting in Allah. He prayed to Allah, and I know that only you can help me. Even when his body was in pain, he didn't lose hope. He was patient because he knew that Allah was with him." I listened closely, my heart touched by the story. "Did Allah help him, Mama?" "Yes," my mother answered, her eyes sparkling with love. "After many years of patience and trust in Allah, Allah healed Prophet Ayub and gave him everything back: his health, his wealth, and even more blessings than before. Allah rewarded him for his patience, because patience is something very precious in His eyes." I felt a warmth spread through me as I imagined Prophet Ayub's strength and faith. I want to be like Prophet Ayub, Mama. I want to learn how to wait patiently. My mother smiled and hugged me tightly. "You are already on your way, my dear. Remember, patience doesn't mean sitting still and being sad. It means trusting Allah's plan and waiting calmly, knowing that everything will happen when it's meant to." I felt better now, knowing that I didn't have to worry while I waited. Allah had a plan, and I just had to trust Him and be patient. Later that night, before I went to bed, I prayed quietly. "Ya Allah, please help me be patient, like Prophet Ayub. Help me trust that everything will happen at the right time. And please bring Baba home safely soon." As I lay in bed, I felt peaceful. I knew that patience was a gift from Allah, and I was learning to appreciate it more every day. The next morning I woke up early with the sound of birds singing outside my window. The sun had risen, and the cool morning air made everything feel fresh and new. I still missed Baba, but I remembered what Mama had taught me about patience, and it made me feel a little calmer. I decided to go outside for a walk in the garden to clear my mind and enjoy the beautiful day. I stepped out into the garden, where the flowers were blooming in every color. The roses were bright red, the daisies were white and yellow, and the jasmine had a sweet smell that filled the air. I took a deep breath, feeling the fresh air fill my lungs. The garden always made me feel peaceful, as if everything was in its right place. As I walked along the path, I spotted my neighbor, Ibrahim, sitting on her porch. Ibrahim was an elderly woman who lived alone, but she always had a warm smile and kind words to share. She was known for her wisdom, and I loved talking to her whenever I could. "Good morning, my dear," she called out as I passed by. "Would you like to sit with me for a while?" I smiled and walked over to her porch, where she had a small chair waiting for me. "Of course, Ibrahim," I said as I sat down. "I've been thinking a lot about patience lately." Ibrahim nodded as if she had expected that. Patience. It's a beautiful thing, isn't it? But it's not always easy. Allah has given us so many wonderful lessons in nature about patience. I looked at her, curious. "What do you mean, Ibrahim?" She pointed to the flowers and trees around us. "Look at these plants," she said. "They all grow in their own time. The flowers bloom in the spring, the trees grow tall over many years, and the seeds in the ground take their time to sprout. They don't rush. They don't complain. They wait for the right moment, and when the time is right, they flourish." I gazed at the garden around us, noticing the way the plants stood tall and peaceful, each one growing in its own time. "I never thought about it like that," I said softly. "The flowers and trees don't hurry, and they always grow the way they're supposed to." Ibrahim smiled gently. "Exactly, my dear. Allah created everything in perfect harmony. Everything grows and unfolds at the right time, and just like the plants, we too must wait for the right time for everything to happen in our lives." She leaned forward a little, her wise eyes sparkling. "Patience is not just about waiting. It's about trusting Allah's plan for us. Sometimes we don't understand why things happen the way they do, but Allah knows what is best for us. When we wait patiently, we show that we trust Allah's wisdom and timing." I thought about her words as I looked at the flowers around us. I could see how each one was special in its own way, whether it bloomed quickly or slowly. It made me think of my own life and how sometimes I wanted things to happen quickly, like seeing Baba again or getting the things I wanted. But now I understood that, just like the flowers, I had to wait for the right time, trusting that Allah knew what was best. "Do you know, my dear," Ibrahim continued, "even when we face challenges or difficult times, patience can be our best friend. It helps us stay strong and calm, knowing that after the waiting comes the reward. Just like the plants that bloom after being nurtured, we too will see good things come from our patience." I smiled, feeling a sense of peace fill my heart. I thanked Ibrahim for her wise words and continued my walk through the garden, taking in the beauty of everything around me. I felt like I had learned something important. Patience wasn't just about waiting for something to happen. It was about trusting that Allah had a plan for me, and everything would unfold in its own time. As I returned to the house, I looked up at the sky and whispered a small prayer. "Ya Allah, help me be patient, just like the flowers and trees. Help me trust in your plan and grant me the strength to wait for the good things you have prepared for me." With a peaceful heart, I went inside, knowing that patience was not just something I had to practice in the hard moments, but something that could help me appreciate the beauty of life, just as I had appreciated the garden that morning. That evening, after we finished dinner and prayed Maghrib, my mother called me to sit with her. She had a soft, welcoming smile as she patted the space next to her on the sofa. "Come, my dear, let's read from the Quran together." I sat beside her, feeling comforted by the familiar sound of her voice. My mother had always taught me that the Quran was full of wisdom and guidance, and every time we read it together, I learned something new. "Tonight, I want to share something special with you," my mother said as she opened the Quran to a verse. "It's about trusting in Allah's plan and being patient even when things seem hard." She began to recite the verse. "Do not kill your children for fear of poverty. We provide for them and for you." Quran 17:31. I listened carefully as my mother continued. This verse is a reminder from Allah that we should never let fear take over our hearts. There is no need to worry because Allah provides for us. Even when things are difficult, He knows what we need and He will always take care of us. Sometimes we feel afraid or unsure, but patience helps us remember that Allah has a plan for everything and He will guide us through. I looked at her with wide eyes. "But Mama, what does this have to do with patience?" She smiled gently and explained, "When we feel afraid or worried, it can be hard to wait. We might feel like we need things right away, but the Quran teaches us that Allah is the provider. He knows exactly what we need, when we need it, and we must trust in His timing." I thought about the things I had been waiting for, like Baba's return from his trip. I had been feeling impatient, wanting everything to happen now, but now I understood that sometimes Allah asks us to wait, not because He is making us suffer, but because waiting helps us grow stronger in our faith. "Mama, do you think Allah will always help us if we trust Him and are patient?" I asked, feeling more at ease. My mother nodded, her eyes filled with love and wisdom. "Yes, my dear, Allah promises to help those who are patient. Even when life is difficult, we must remember that everything comes at the right time. Allah will never forget us, and He will always be there to guide us through every challenge." I closed my eyes for a moment, thinking about what my mother had said. I felt a sense of peace wash over me. I knew that Allah was always with me, even when I couldn't see the answers right away. "Ya Allah," I whispered quietly, "please help me be patient and trust in your plan. Even when things seem hard, help me remember that you are always with me, guiding me every step of the way." My mother gently kissed the top of my head. "Patience is a form of worship, my dear. When we are patient, we show our trust in Allah and our belief that He knows what's best for us. Remember that Allah never tests us with more than we can bear." I felt my heart soften. The feeling of peace was stronger than before, and I realized that patience wasn't something I had to do alone. Allah was helping me every step of the way. As I lay in bed that night, ready to drift off to sleep, I thought about the beautiful lessons I had learned. The story of Prophet Ayub, the wisdom from Ibrahim, and the reminder from the Quran all filled my heart with a sense of calm and trust. I was ready to be patient, knowing that Allah's plan was better than anything I could imagine. I closed my eyes and whispered once more, "Ya Allah, thank you for guiding me. I trust you, and I will be patient." And with that, I drifted off to sleep, feeling at peace, knowing that everything would happen in its own time. The next morning, I woke up early. As the sunlight began to peek through my window, I felt different today, calmer and more at peace. The lessons from the past few days still echoed in my mind. Patience, trust in Allah's plan, and the promise that everything happens at the right time. I went outside and stood by the window, looking out over the garden. The flowers that had bloomed yesterday still stood proudly, their petals glowing in the soft morning light. It was as if the garden itself was telling me to trust the process of growth, just like the flowers, just like me. As I gazed out, I suddenly heard a familiar voice calling my name. My heart skipped a beat, and I rushed to the door. It was my father. "Abba," I called out joyfully, running toward him as he stood at the gate, a big smile on his face. He laughed and opened his arms wide. "My dear child, I've missed you so much." I ran into his arms, feeling warmth and happiness flood through me. I had been waiting for this moment for so long, and now it had finally come. Baba was home. He looked at me with kind eyes. "I am so happy to see you, my little one. How have you been?" I smiled, feeling proud of myself. "I've been good, Baba. I've been learning a lot about patience while you were away." He raised an eyebrow, curious. "Patience, huh? That's a valuable lesson. Tell me, what did you learn?" I took a deep breath and shared the story of everything I had learned over the past few days. From the story of Prophet Ayub and the wisdom of Ibrahim to the lessons from the Quran. I learned that patience isn't just about waiting for something to happen. It's about trusting Allah's plan and knowing that He will take care of us in His own time, I said, feeling proud of how much I had grown. Baba listened carefully, nodding with approval. "You've learned a very important lesson, my dear. Patience is a key to happiness and peace. When we trust Allah's timing, we are never alone, and we always find comfort even in the waiting." As we walked back to the house, I couldn't stop smiling. I had learned something so powerful. Patience wasn't about waiting for things to happen immediately. It was about trusting that Allah would bring what I needed at the right time. I had learned to be at peace with the process, knowing that everything had a purpose. That evening, after we prayed Isha together, I sat quietly in my room, reflecting on everything I had learned. I thought about all the times I had felt impatient, rushing for things to happen. But now I understood that waiting wasn't something to fear. It was an opportunity to grow stronger in my faith and trust in Allah. I whispered a prayer before closing my eyes. "Ya Allah, thank you for teaching me patience. Thank you for showing me that I don't need to rush, because your plan is perfect. I trust you, and I know you are always with me." And with that, I drifted off to sleep, knowing that Allah's plan was greater than anything I could imagine. I was ready for whatever the future held, trusting that everything would come at the right time, just as it was meant to.